Alright, so Clare's Podge Collins is in town to launch a GAA All-Ireland Hurling Championship, with thanks to Centra. Over the course of this championship, Centra will seek to get beneath the helmet of their GAA ambassadors, who are some of Ireland's best-known hurlers, and their support teams to unearth what is that not only drives their passion for the sport, but what it means to them to represent their communities on hurling's biggest stage. For exclusive content to see how Centra will champion the hurling community across Ireland, follow hashtag #WeAreHurling, at Centra IRL on Twitter, and at Centra_IRL on Instagram, and www.facebook.com/Centra Ireland. Podge Collins, how are you?
Good on. How are you keeping?
Good. We were having one of these strange conversations yesterday, which are completely pointless, but I think it's people who are insecure about football. They talk about the great start that they've had in the Ulster Football Championship, and they were thinking to themselves, can it live up to the great game of hurling when it's played at its best? As a player, when you're playing football and in hurling, is there a huge disparity between them in terms of the quality?
I'd say not. I wouldn't even get into an argument about it. I think they're both great games and played properly. I do think that the way football is gone, that you can come across some games that would just put you to sleep. Like, they're just very negative. Some managers have decided that, listen, the best way to do this is we're going to put 14, 15 men behind the ball and try follow Jim McGuinness's model, even though I wouldn't even say it's Donegal's model, because they've really evolved from that, and they are a top football side. They're one of the top football sides in the country. But I just think it's, like you were talking about yesterday, it's just the fact that the league structure is excellent in football. They've got something very right there. And then the All-Ireland structure is just not right. It's a broken model, and it needs to be fixed. But I think with the Munster and Leinster Championships in hurling, I think they've got something very right again, which the GAA don't get too much credit too often. I think they deserve credit for the way they've set that up at the moment. I think they've that very right. And like, the other competitions are competitive. The Larry Maher, the Joe McDonough and the Christy Ring are very competitive competitions as well. So I think that if they kind of nearly look at the league, look how that's working in the football, and try model it around that and do something like that, that you won't have a situation where you're going to have 50 men by the ball, because everyone will be going out to win the game, and you're going to have a more enjoyable game. So, like, instead of changing 5 rules, let's look at maybe changing the structure.
It's amazing what happens when you put teams of a similar quality up against one another, because also, first of all, you get the lack of a defensive structure or whatever it may be, more ambition, but also then when you get to like the top tier of that, when you have the elite against the elite, you have incredible matches like we've had in the Munster Hurling Championship. And even, like, it's not actually too far-fetched a comparison to make. When you look at the Champions League this year, for example, the insane games we had in the semi-final, it's because 2 elite teams are just going for it.
Yeah, just sport is amazing. Like, watching Liverpool and Tottenham one day after another, it was pretty unbelievable. And I think that, like, Dublin going away to Kerry in Championship, like, and at home to Kerry, and if you that kind of a Munster Championship structure with the football, like, it would be incredible. The fan bases and stuff, like in Galway and filling Galway and Tyrone and stuff, it'd be I think it'd make for a super championship.
It certainly would. One of the other things and it kind of sparked this whole conversation about it, like, weirdly people are still looking for ways to make hurling better, and one of those is talking about the weight of the slitter. Is the slitter too light in hurling at the moment?
My striking wouldn't be the best, so I'm going to say no. I think it's just fine. But you do have players like Pat Horgan, TJ Reid, Tony Kelly, Joe Canning that can strike the ball for 100 plus yards, and it's a skill. The people that are commenting, I'd love to see them come out in the field and hit the ball and see how they get on. Realistically, honestly, I would. I'd actually like, there's not a lot of players that can do it to that level and accurate. It's a skill, and the ball is the way it is. The game is going pretty well at the moment. I think last year's championship was a good championship, and I think this year's shaping up to be a good championship, and I think that they've very little to be given out about.
Yeah, for sure. Like, the question I'd have is, say, if you're an inside forward, there's never any sense that the ball isn't coming in far enough at all, because I guess it is the high percentage play to, I guess, puck it over from 40, 50 yards. But as you say, doing that, or even from 60, 70, 80, is an unbelievable skill. Yeah,
no, it's a skill. And, like, you start putting the ball wide from 70 yards, your management are not going to be happy. They want to see the ball going into their inside forwards. The likes of your John Conlon and Seamus Cannon, they don't want them starve the ball. They're in there for a reason. They're a threat, and you start putting the ball wide for 70 yards, and you've a problem.
Yeah, for sure. It doesn't really pertain to Clare, though. I mean, when it comes to your inside forwards, you've got great players who can hit it long range as well. But inside, when it comes to a forward line, the intricate play that you have is something that I think everybody comments on, and it's very, very impressive. Is that something you work on, particularly in training? Is it something in terms of movement, in terms of space, and your appreciation for space?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think when you put players together for a long period of time as well. That helps when you're playing together with the same person for a number of years. That adds to it as well. You see with the tip forward line this year, they seem to be working very well off each other. And I think it's like, I suppose you'd be trying to do something similar. I think the more years you play together, the better it gets.
Mm-hmm. Like when it comes to actually building up that relationship with somebody, is there a sense that at the start you're trying to sort of build up that telepathic relationship, or is there with some players it just has that spark immediately?
Yeah, to be honest, I think it does take time to build up no matter what. You can have two good players playing together and playing well, but when you play together a couple of times and build that rapport and build that relationship, I think it does help. Like even when I was a Clare minor, Brian Lohan was over the team when I was under 17. Now I was number 30 something on the panel, but anyway, in training, Brian Lohan was on the selectors, and he came up to me after and he said, "Do you only pass the ball to Cathal McInerney?" Because Cathal was my club mate, and he was playing the full forward line, and I just knew what runs he would make, so I was constantly hitting him the ball. But it was after a number of sessions, Brian Lohan was like, "Do you only hit the ball to him or something?" And I was like, something I hadn't thought about. It was nothing
really?
Like in my head. Oh, absolutely not. It was just that I knew his movement just from playing together since we were under 8s, under 10s and up along. So it's just funny when you play with someone so long, you kind of know exactly what they're going to do.
And is it in the subconscious, or would you be...
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely subconscious, yeah.
So it's almost like a reactive thing. I guess with the speed of the game, you don't have time to think too deeply about which way one of your teammates is going to move.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting looking at that set of forwards and the different characters that you have there. One of the most commented on has been Shane O'Donnell and his return to the team and to the country, indeed, over the last couple of weeks. And his performance in the first game was magnificent. He had his hands on the ball so often, and it's got this conversation going again that clearly taking a step back from the game has done him no harm whatsoever.
Yeah, I suppose I found it funny that people were arguing on Twitter saying that this pre-season thing is a cod, and you're kind of, in my own head, I'm thinking like this is just typical now, just because Shane was away for 6 months. Like, you think that, he was just swanning around Harvard, just living the college life, and couldn't be further from the truth. Like, he came back in unbelievable shape. It's like during that off season that some players do, where they go out and they cut the diet and they enjoy their time, and then they come back and they get themselves back in shape. Like, Shane just consistently kept in shape throughout that, looked after himself, had the hurling ball over there with him, looked after himself, came back, his touch was the same as he never left. Now, he has very good hand-eye coordination anyway, so I wasn't too worried about him anyway coming back. He just came back, hit the ground running and loving it. But there is a point to be made that when you do, there needs to be some sort of a break during the calendar year. Like when the county ends, the club starts and it goes on, and then the colleges start for some lads, and so 1 year can roll into the next for a number of years, 4 or 5 years, and the break definitely does do you good. And maybe it has done Shane, that not being in Ireland, not being exposed to hurling as much, has done him good, but he definitely came back in good form, and long may it continue.
It's interesting that you say that he kept on top of himself fitness wise, and even had the hurley over there with him. Is it more of a mental break then that is kind of required? Yeah,
maybe that's it. I think it's different. Every person is different. Like some people go away from a hurley for a couple of weeks and the eye completely goes and they need to sharpen up. You'd often hear players, "I need to get sharp, I need to go to the alley," and whatever. And Shane has great hand-eye coordination, his touch is great, he's put in a lot of work with it, so I was never too worried about him coming back.
I do wonder about that sharpness. Obviously you've had tough injury troubles in the past. Getting back from that injury is a huge mountain of work, and getting back to full fitness, whatever it may be on a cardio level. But in terms of that sharpness, how long does that take?
At hurling it is different. Like it's so different. It's kind of like you just have to hit the ball off the wall or get down to the field and just start hitting ball just to get that in, and it's harder for some people than others, and I probably have to work on it a bit more than the likes of Shane and Tony and these guys, but it does take, it's something different. It's a small ball and you're trying to control it. It's not easy.
Yeah. Did you ever think that, I guess, being away from the game, the forced break, I guess, in your situation, it's very, very hard to look on that in any positive light whatsoever, but did you come back at all and think, God, that was actually kind of an inadvertent break that I've had, my mind and the way I think about the game might be a little bit different to the way it was beforehand?
I did know from a young age that, like, let's say 18 on, it was kind of hurling football continuous throughout, and there was very little time for a break, and I did understand it was a break, and there was worse things going on in the world, and my cruciate injury, it's a common injury in sport, I wasn't too worried about it, and I still kept going to the hurling, and still didn't, I was able to poke around. It didn't completely lay me up, and I came back in 7 months, I think it was, and it wasn't too long a break, and there was the off season in the middle of that, so it was I don't know, listen, I enjoy doing it, so I don't really need much of a break.
Yeah, for sure. The last thing then, I guess, is just looking back on, I guess, this journey that it's been over the last 6 or 7 years, especially since 2013. Like, the way the leadership group has changed, the way there's a couple of All-Ireland winners that kind of leave year after year after year, and the constant refreshing, I guess, of the squad as a result of that. Has that been a seamless process, the changing of the leadership core?
I suppose it has. It probably just happened just out of pure necessity. The players left and other lads had to step up, and lads are pushing on now, and it's kind of when you get to a certain age group, you realise that it's time to let's say take up the mantle and try to drive this thing on as a player. And I think a lot of lads have done that this year. It's probably a natural thing. Let's say go back to 2013, you'd lads like Fergal Lynch, you'd lads like Brendan Bugler, Paddy Donlan, and they were really driving it. And it's kind of, they've obviously all retired shortly after it, and other lads have stepped up, and I feel they have, lads like Tony and Shane and John are really they're really pushing it.
Well, Podge, great to chat to you, and best of luck for the year ahead. Clare's Podge Collins was here with thanks to Centra's launch for the All-Ireland Hurling Championship. Over the course of this championship, Centra will seek to get beneath the helmet of their GAA ambassadors, who are some of Ireland's best-known hurlers, and their support teams, to unearth not just what drives their passion for the sport, but what it means to them to represent their communities on hurling's biggest stage. For exclusive content and to see how Centra will champion the hurling community across Ireland, follow #WeAreHurling, and you can also get them at Centra IRL on Twitter, at Centra_IRL on Instagram, and Facebook.com/Centra Ireland.